find yourself getting passed by multiple cars, as I mentioned earlier on. So Newhoff in a very precarious situation, but he often finds himself in these places. He doesn't qualify as well as he races.
Up front, they are getting with Lee Aberdeen and Luca Varani, not very far apart at all here. But I just want to see how Alistair Haig deals with Marcello Kessler coming around the old hairpin.
I would say it's not the best decision they've ever made, just not having done that under the safety car, really.
Yeah, they're taking their pit stop strategies from Ferrari lately or something. What's going on?
In turn one, just too much gas on them, too much feet on the loud pedal, and unfortunately he's dropped all the way down the order. But Philip Hammer is out in front by an 8.91 seconds. Dan Michael is a wall there, sir. And it definitely doesn't want to be hitting that earlier on as well.
Difficult, the understeer is in the dirty air through that final corner because it's such a long corner and you get dragged off into the grass very easily. He'll have the slipstream down towards the chicane. Peterson was briefly alongside, but that slipstream has saved him and kept him in third.
Yeah, Varani now lost a little bit of time to Aberdeen, about half a second. Peterson is Pike's pushed Morton forward up ahead. He's got out of line. Is now Pike going to have a go at Werrell? Don't push him off. He's in the championship fight. Jack Werrell chasing down Carl Jacklin. Further down, Rob Williams and Chris Barnes.
Sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly. Miller's still start trouble. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden Miller's back in play.
Moving on to the back end of Phil Jocelyn. So there's been a lot of movers and shakers in this first 2 laps here for race.
Absolutely serious racing league. Everybody's allowed to have fun. Yeah. It's all about the entertainment, so I hope everybody is enjoying themselves out there in the chat. We know that Ron is been enjoying himself watching. The Burger King machine's off into the grass a little bit there. Is that really bunching up now?
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to PRL for round 7 here around Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Fantastic street circuit. We had a lot of carnage happening last night. It was certainly very entertaining to watch from the sidelines. But we do have a little bit of a replacement already hopping in. Darragh, unfortunately, has been caught up with some personal matters. Wishing him all the best. But of course, I have the one and only Zach Sweeney alongside me here. Zach, it's a pleasure to have you here at PRL.
It very much is. Very much looking forward to seeing what shenanigans we can get up to with the Tier 2 lot. Unfortunately, Darragh Thacker, once again, not turning up. So I think we're going to have to start calling him Darragh Slacker or something in that range. Because I've got experience with Darragh not turning up. It's so unprofessional. How dare he? Very little man, and yet he can... Well, that's probably why he's so good at disappearing, is because he is so small. But anyway, we'll stop the Darragh slander for now. We've got a fantastic race lined up. Jeddah, it's fast, it's flowing, but most importantly, it's very, very tight and twisty as well. So yeah, let's bring on round 7.
Absolutely. We've seen many safety cars potentially affecting the Tier 1 standings, but looking back at these Tier 2 standings we currently have, let's be honest, it's looking a little bit more open. Seems like Rapid OG might potentially have this one in the bag. Of course, heading into round 7 out of the 10-round season. There's not long left to go. Rapid OG, surely you just think he just needs to be a little bit more consistent, keep breaking the little point tally he keeps getting, keep just building up on it further and further, and just trying to build that lead over Craggy and PRL Shane as well. But with that all being said, we know it's Jeddah, anything can happen. We saw last night the safety cars, the strategies, it all went wayward. Personally, I will just tell you right now, Zach, keep an eye on the Ferrari team. They work together like a dynamo, mate. They are fantastic.
Well, that's what you want to see, isn't it, really, is that team dynamic. Of course, for Rapid OG at the front, he's, well, pretty much, I don't want to say carrying Alfa Romeo, but of course up there running very, very strongly. To be fair, he's still sort of kept Alfa Romeo in sort of competition when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. But yeah, the Ferrari Team 3 and 4 at the moment, that's exactly what you need, that team dynamic, and particularly sort of here at Jeddah as well, where slipstream and consistency and strategy as well is going to be paramount. It's so good to have two very, very strong drivers fighting at the front, because it allows you so many more open doors when it comes to decisions. We know how chaotic it can be here at Jeddah with safety cars and wild strategies and collisions and all this, that and the other happening. If they can both be running at the front, they've got so many opportunities this race.
Absolutely, and considering the sort of team dynamics we saw slightly earlier in the season around Portimao, where there was going too wide for the tight twisty sections when they weren't on the best tyres, really showing that team synergy and that bonding that they have. Of course, majority of these drivers, good friends, they'll sit, they'll talk, they'll race with one another during the week, but when it comes to crunch time on the Wednesday and Tuesday nights, that's when a lot of these friendships tend to go out the window. But the Ferrari duo, more than happy to still to work together on track to try and benefit one another, whether it's going to be by blocking the track, trading slipstreams, managing the battery, DRS trading, you name it, they've done it already in this series. But I do agree, it's going to open up a whole world of opportunities for these two to really work together, especially considering you've got that tight sector 1, you've got the really strong slipstream and DRS potent effect heading down to the final corner, and you've got the re-ability to overtake back down the start-finish straight heading into turn 1. If these two qualify next to each other, we could be in for a bit of a whitewash.
I think so. I mean, pack racing is something that has become sort of unanimous when it comes to the Jeddah circuit. In pretty much every race here, you will 9 times out of 10 see some form of a pack or a train start to form at the front end, because, you know, it's such a fast-flowing circuit. That DRS and that slipstream is so paramount to success that if you have got two drivers at the front who are willing to work together, they can surround and isolate other drivers a part of that train. They can really work together to box people in, to strategically place the cars in positions where they can give each other slipstreams and just give themselves that best foot going forward. But conversely, for the other teams and drivers who maybe are going to be the drivers, say Craggy Speed or Rapid OG, potentially at the front for McLaren and Alfa Romeo, they're also going to need to be mindful of the fact that they could well potentially be by themselves at the front. They need to sort of maybe form an inter-team alliance temporarily, working together to try and stop that alliance between the two Ferrari boys. There are so many different ways that this race can pan out. We've got 25 laps, of course, to decide it. Nothing is a guarantee. That's the one thing I've learned about not only the F1 game, but Jeddah in particular, is that you can never, ever feel safe.
Absolutely. You know, it's that moment where you tend to sort of rest on your laurels a little bit, take a little bit easier, and that slight snap of focus loss can cost you so much, not only in delta-wise, but potentially in race, in a race scenario. You could be losing a front wing, you're losing 7-8 seconds if pit stops change, especially if it does happen somewhat under a safety car, or when the pack's really, really tight. It can have that concertina effect where you're not only ruining your race, but you're also damaging the drivers behind you. And if you do end up qualifying by your teammate, that could potentially be a worst case scenario. But we do have a returning name here to PRL. It's not one I'm too familiar with, but of course, it'll be Leclerc 1090 here. But I feel like for the remainder of this broadcast, we should just call him Leclerc in a McLaren.
Of course, we saw him celebrating his victory at Mexico over the course of the PRL intro, so maybe he's looking to celebrate another one here at Jeddah. Of course,
easy
in
work.
The papaya. Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it's simple, right? Just drive fast and you'll win.
Yeah, he's got a working team behind him now. He's really got no excuses.
Oh, exactly. Perfect. Simple as. Just go fast, win race. I mean, what more is there to it? I mean, those at the top end of F1 esports, I don't really know what they're playing at. Just go quicker than those around you, and you should be absolutely fine. Of course, naturally, that's not the whole story, and I'm one to talk. You should see me try and drive the F1 game. I am absolutely dreadful. I'm not as bad as Nathan Richards, granted.
Very true.
But that's a very, very low bar. That's like, I don't know, trying to say you can beat a kid in a 10-meter sprint or something. I don't know. So there's an analogy there to be made. Regardless of which, we are into qualifying. 15 minutes left on the clock. And when you think about it, actually, we say, you've got 18 minutes, but that's not really that long. By the time you've bed yourself into the session, by the time you've really got a good lap under your belt, you've realistically already lost half of it.
Absolutely, and considering, it is such a tight track, as you've already mentioned, Zach, there are those opportunities where you can come up towards slower traffic cars on an in-lap or an out-lap, regardless of whatever it might be. If you end up getting caught behind them in a critical part of this sector, especially Sector 1, Sector 2, there's so many different parts where you can very much be blindsided by slower cars. That's your out-lap, your fast lap. Do you want to try and risk it and stay out and go for another fast lap after recharging your battery? Again, it's all those little tiny increments which keep eating away at this overall time, and it can very quickly find you with 4 or 5 minutes left of a session, or one brand new set of soft tyres to go for it, and no lap time on the board. It can be absolutely devastating, but hopefully we're going to be able to get smooth running during this qualifying session, as Leclerc currently seems to be setting the pace up at the front. Very, very controlled in the mannerisms he's driving this car, I must say.
Yeah, exactly, and touching nicely actually onto that point that you were making regarding qualifying at tight and twisty street circuits, is that you do want that first lap just as an acclimatization, warming yourself up to the track limits. At a circuit that there is so much time the driver can make up through such tight, technical and twisty parts of the circuit, a 1:27.6 is the benchmark to beat. You just want to get a lap in. Doesn't need to, be the lap that puts you on pole position, just something, because then that eases your nerves going throughout the rest of the session. You feel a bit more confident to push because you know that if you mess up, you've got a decent lap that you can fall back on. Whereas if you go throughout the entire session and you're pushing and you're pushing and you're pushing and you continue to make mistakes, you go into, as you say, that final 5 minutes really on the back foot, because then you've got to go for a do or die lap that either puts you on pole or starts you from last. So I think the laps that we're seeing coming in now are going to be nowhere near the lap times that we see towards the end of the session, but the important thing is that they are there on the board.
Absolutely, and we're already seeing that cause and effect. Rapid Gopher went out on a medium tyre. Yes, it won't be the quickest, but it's just acclimatising himself to the circuit. It's getting himself embedded, getting that banker lap in, so we can build a little bit more confidence, build a little bit of momentum, heading deeper into this qualifying session. While we look at the other half of the Alfa Romeo garage, we see Rapid OG here invalidating on his run on that soft tyre. Not only is that a potential set of soft tyres wasted, but you're thinking now, that's 5 minutes of a session already gone, with nothing to show for it.
Exactly that, and it's so difficult as a driver to sort of bed yourself back into that, particularly in a driver of his position, right?
Yes, absolutely. You are thinking, you've got to keep building that momentum. You've got to keep putting in those great lap times. You've got to keep earning those marginal points you do get in the qualifying, because at the end of the day, marginal gains mean so much in such a competitive league similar to this. So it's got to be very much somewhat indicative of whether these drivers are really going to be able to somewhat crack themselves into that sort of flow, into that mojo, and really start be able to extract the absolute utmost performance out of the car.
Following along with Beast, of course, a member of that Ferrari contingent that we touched on that are so strong as a squad and as a duo, goes purple to the first sector provisionally. And the fun thing about watching laps here at Jeddah is that any lap looks remarkable with how close these cars run and how much speed they carry through. It's just astonishing, particularly riding on board with them as they dance their way around the Jeddah Corniche circuit here in Saudi Arabia. Not the cleanest of laps. You can see a little bit left on the table for Beast over the course of the first half of his first lap. But again, it doesn't need to be anything special, just something. But you'd like to think that at some point of this session, he'll find an apex.
Yes, absolutely. It will just be one of those things where he's just more concerned about getting that car staying on the track, right? It's okay. We know how common it is for drivers to somewhat overdrive their cars around the circuit. It can be very, very punishing. You can see there, even just priming it up to the wall on that final corner. It's just one of those things where you do have to calculate the risk. You do have to realise the sort of scenarios you could put yourself in. Just making sure that you're able to get this lap sorted without popping a tyre off and saying goodbye to your qualifying session is absolutely paramount to be able to somewhat extract the best performance. But again, we're seeing it here. PRL Crew Steamers, invalidated lap. It's another one of those scenarios where it's just going to keep coming and coming until they finally understand that they just have to take it a little bit easier. It's not the be-all and end-all. There's still 10 minutes left to go in the session. Get yourself a banker and build onto it.
Exactly. You can't build a house by placing the roof first. You have to build that foundation, and then you have to start with the walls, then get everything nice and secure, then you can put the roof on top. It's like you don't start a cake by, putting the icing on a plate and going boom, it's a cake. You just have to start with everything. I mean, you can if you just like the icing.
I mean, I was about to say I've seen Nathan Richards bake a cake, and he does a very similar thing.
Yeah, but that's you can't compare anything to Nathan Richards because it's Nathan Richards, and he's. Well, Nathan Richards. I do love how that's a scale of measurement. It's just how how Nathan Richards is that. It's like 0 to 10. It's like Nathan Richards to, I don't know, Max Verstappen or something. There are different sort of spectrums that you could use, but 9 times out of 10, Nathan Richards is at the lower end of it. Anyway, let's focus on the action and not so much on the Nathan Richards slander because we could be here forever. So if we ever need some filler, then we'll just get Nathan Richards into the booth and absolutely slander him. As things stand, though, it's the AlphaTauri of Komi-san that is leading the way. Incredibly close start, though, and very close competition, it must be said, at the front end of the field.
Yeah, it will be that way for the remainder of a qualifying session. I know you're not too familiar, Zach, but we will be seeing closer and closer lap times, especially with the likes of Rapid Gopher now going out on that soft compound tyre. Wonder what he's going to be able to magic up. Of course, setting that 128.002 on the medium compound. You're expecting probably about a 5/10, delta difference between the different tyre compounds around the circuit, especially in qualifying trim, where, the light fuel loads, you can slim the cars in a little bit better. You can put more lateral load into all the tyres to really try and maximise your performance. As we do see Darragh here coming up towards the line, it'll be a 29 flat. But considering that slide out at final corner, all things considered, it's not the end of the world.
It's not a bad lap time as well. Rapid Gopher, you can see in the Haas. You are expecting, of course, a slightly quicker lap time, but you also have to go and do it. The theoretical potential to go half a second quicker is there, but then you also have to go and execute that lap. It might have just been a really, really strong lap on the mediums that he might not be able to replicate on the softs, or I'm chatting out of my backside and he's going to go and absolutely smash the pole time by a good couple of tenths of a second. Only time will tell, but the execution has to be there as a driver, and still running quite nicely. Purple through the middle sector, or so the game says. He looks to be fairly committed, though, not seeing too much in terms of an inconsistency with his driving. All will be revealed, though, as he exits the final corner.
Absolutely. It's going to be very much detriment to how well he's able to get on the power, and whether this Red Bull car is going to potentially distract him, or maybe even be a bit of an obstruction coming out of that final corner. But I do believe he's been able to navigate it well enough here, so he should be expecting Rapid Gopher to put it on pole, and he's certainly going to done that with a 127 flat. That theoretical half a second, I feel like my calculations might have been a little bit wrong with my own pace checks there, depending on the tyre delta, because he's absolutely smashed it. Not only showing that soft compounds are clearly quicker than the mediums, as everyone would think.
Wow.
I know, Will Buxton moment, but also showing the track is evolving, getting more rubber laid down on it, and it is becoming quicker and quicker with each lap which these drivers do.
Yeah, of course, and executing that lap, it definitely did shut me up. Rapid Gopher showcasing how rapid he is, 27.0. Of course, it does make sense, because with the high lateral loads here at Jeddah, and there are more corners, there are more opportunities for the tyres to be quicker as such. Maybe at the Red Bull Ring, there'd be a slight closer gap between the mediums and the softs, but obviously a longer, more technical circuit, you'll see a bigger differential between the harder and the softer rubber. So that is a very strong lap time. Can't read too much into it at the moment, because there are still 7 minutes left to go in the session. Still plenty of opportunity for people to improve. Let's see what the championship leader does, and it's only good enough for a front row. Still 0.4 of a second off that time set by the Haas, but again, still got time left to go in qualifying, and 25 laps of very hard racing here in Jeddah.
Absolutely. We've already mentioned you've got to be on your A game. You've got to be concentrated. You've got to have that focal point, understand exactly where you're going to be able to pull away from the rest of the field, where you can min-max your delta time to the rest of the competition. I'm sure all the drivers are going through the race director, looking at the sector times, thinking, right, okay, so-and-so is a little bit quicker out of sector 1. I think they've got a little bit more downforce. I should really be aiming towards the latter end of the lap if I'm going to try and get an overtake there. But of course, we've got to get to the race first. We've still got 6 minutes left to go. And, you know, you've already alluded to it, that considering some of the teamwork that these teams are able to somewhat produce, the McLarens, the Ferraris, and also the Williams as well, being very, very good at it, you do need your so-called track mates, I think me and Darragh put it the other week, where you can work together, you can build gaps, you can efficiently manage your race plan all the way throughout the race with one of your track mates until the dying embers of a race. That's when you go for the overtakes. That's when you can go for the slightly silly, a little bit crazy lunges after you've built up the trust, you've built up an understanding with the driver in front of you. And considering that we've currently got a Rapid 1-2, both of them are part of a Rapid clan, you would necessarily think that they're going to be pretty good working together, despite not necessarily showing for the same team.
Exactly. It's sort of that mutual respect as such as drivers, and it's effectively just basic racecraft as well. Sort of you learn from a grassroots level, whatever discipline that is, sim racing, karting, mini bikes, whatever your grassroots plan is, you learn from a very, very early point in your sort of career as such that you do not battle too early. It's short-term gain, don't get me wrong, you get that track position, you feel good, you pulled off a great overtake, but then it's long-term loss. You then see the gap start to spread out, you've burnt through too much of your tyres, you've set yourself a ceiling because you've battled too soon. Whereas if you just work together, see that mutual gain that can be had, saving ERS, saving tyres, staying in the slipstream, attacking as a pair as opposed to a singularity, then you can sort of work together and you know, maybe see yourself fight for a podium, but obviously in isolation, but then maybe fight for a win if you were to work together with those around you. And it's leaving it until the very, very last moment, or until you start to see the sort of the benefits of that track mate relationship start to fizzle out, that you then go, okay, I'm not gaining anything relative to what I'm sacrificing here, so now I'm going to go for that move, and now I'm going to see what I can do in front. It's all a balancing act, and it's all circumstantial, so you won't really know until you get to the checker flag what the best decision was.
Absolutely, and it's the reason why hindsight is such a beautiful thing in both sim racing and real racing as well. You can understand exactly what's gone on, what needs to happen, what has already happened. And these drivers, they've been racing for months and months, season and season here at PRL. Majority of the drivers understand who's quicker than who they should fight, and where they should really aim to try and take those battles on track to really be able to maximise their potential result towards the end. But of course, with returning names such as the likes of Leclerc, currently sitting in P4, could potentially throw a little bit of a curveball to the newer drivers on the grid, the drivers which aren't necessarily as familiar with what might necessarily be going on, what necessarily might be happening with the rest of these teams. But around a track like Jeddah, it's going to be so important to make sure they don't get held up by the slower cars. Very much, as you put it, a risk versus reward. Is it worth trying to go for the overtake and potentially losing time, losing a bit of a tyre percentage, causing a little bit more wear, burning a little bit more battery to get that position, to be able to try and reap the benefits of having clean air, no dirty air, maybe a little bit of a better slipstream from a car slightly further in front, not necessarily getting the engine overheating, but so many different factors, which makes it also circumstantial. And exactly how you put it, you'll never really know until the end of a race.
Yeah, hindsight is a very powerful thing, but one that you can never act on that power. It's always just potential, and you know, you can't change what's already been done. It's using your experience, using your knowledge in the moment to decide what is best for you. It's, you know, all over sim racing, all be that in endurance strategy or just, as we say, general racecraft as such, what that best decision is going to be. So many different ways a race can go. You just have to act on what you think is going to be the best trajectory. You write your own destiny and you write your own narrative over the course of the 25 laps of racing. It all starts here, though, in the final stages of qualifying. Tuga gets himself up onto the second row of the grid in the Red Bull, marginally off, just under a tenth of a second off the championship leader, of course, of Rapid OG on the front row. A great lap time, but I think probably his last push lap of the session.
Yeah, it is very much somewhat leading to that way, isn't it? As we do have Darragh starting their lap here as well, looking to move himself slightly higher up than P11, but of course they do have a couple cars around him with a little bit of traffic. So Darragh already deciding, I'm going to take an extra preparation lap, I'm going to burn a little bit more fuel, I'm not going to go gung-ho. I'm going to pace myself. I understand there's cars in front of me on circuit. I don't want to get held up. I could just take it a little bit easier, make sure I'm not deploying the battery, recharging, saving a little bit of fuel, to absolutely try and go for a blinding lap right at the end of a session with what could potentially be, what are we looking at here? The 6th best car on track position-wise, to get the maximum amount of grip from the other cars in front, laying down a little bit of rubber on the circuit. Could very much find himself in a very promising position here.
Yeah, and it's not the shortest of runs towards the first braking zone as well, so you definitely can do a lot from the cleaner side of the grid. Komisan's still there in P4, starting their final lap of the session. Checker flag will fly in a minute 17. Clara will zoom out, so obviously assuming that their session is done and dusted, P10 at best for the Alpine. But this is really where you start to see the quicker lap times come in. The sessions develop, the rubber is laid down, there's more grip out on circuit, the cars are nice and empty in terms of their fuel. So sort of coming back to what we were saying, the lighter the car is, the more agile it is, the more responsive it's going to be. All comes down to what some guy sat under a tree said one time with obviously inertia and things like that. The lighter the car is, of course, the less force it takes to change what it's currently doing, I suppose. So the lighter it is, you'll very much feel that responsiveness. I always compare it to putting like my Halfords toolbox in the back of my car. Immediately felt that my car was heavier, more sluggish, and that translates into track time performance. So let's see what the AlphaTauri can do rounding the final half of the final lap in qualifying. Rapid OG out on an out lap as well. Will he get enough time to set what could well be that fight for pole?
He could very much be up there for a fight for pole, but just Komi-san losing a little bit of time there in sector 1, 3 tenths down, and then of course a couple thousandths down in that middle sector. So really left it all up here towards the final sector as he approaches the final corner. Very late on the brakes, turning in there, trying to get the latest apex possible to try and get himself the best run all the way up towards the line. But I think he knows, truly, in the heart of hearts, he didn't do enough, so he's dived it straight back into the pit lane. Potentially a little bit unsafe. I mean, I'm not gonna snitch in any sort of manner, but you know, stewards, have a little look. As we do see Beast here approaching up towards the line. Currently sitting in P12 and he moved himself up into P3.
Wow.
That is a more representable lap time. The likes of which that we normally see from Beast, but we do have to keep a special thought in mind for Rapid OG, who's just heading through that the second sector now, because he is looking to be on for an absolute barnstorming lap time. But he's not the only one on track who's looking to improve. We do have a couple of the Williams cars, and Alberto Maracucha here was looking to get a little bit of improvement, but lost a lot of time for that middle sector. Had a little bit of a wayward moment, not necessarily being able to find the optimal sort of run, the optimal run plan for this qualifying session. Very unfortunate, but we know he can make brilliant overtakes as Rapid Gopher has once again improved with a 26.9. These lap times are getting ridiculous, honestly. People need to stop practicing. That's all I'm saying.
I know, sweats. You know, go, I don't know. I don't want to offend them too much, but around the final corner, it's going to need to be a sensational improvement from the Alfa Romeo to see the championship leader take another leap towards the championship glory. DRS open across the line. What is it going to be? Ooh. Close. But still not enough. Still close, though, and should hopefully translate into some good racing between the two.
Yeah, it certainly should. Gonna be very interesting heading down into turn 1. What sort of strategy would you really implement? Because for me, I feel like just somewhat taking a little bit of a back step, understanding, okay, it's a long battle. I don't want to go side by side with you in sector 1. That increases risk. Gonna take my time, wait for the DRS to open, and then try and make moves. If it's beneficial, what would you really be doing here, Zach?
Try not to crash, honestly, and I'd probably be starting at the back, so I'd be, you know, stressing to myself that, you know, don't outbrake yourself and plow into, you know, the other 19 cars out on track. But in all seriousness, sort of as a driver fighting at the front end, you need to weigh up that risk. You need to think, how vital is me getting that position going to be? How aggressive can I afford to be? As we touched on, that risk versus that reward. Can you afford just to settle in for a lap or two? Wait for that DRS to open, wait for the race to develop, or do you need to be punchy? Say I don't know, for example, the driver starting P5 this race, do they need to be punchy and get those track position early so they can be a part of that lead fight discussion for as long as possible in this race? It all depends really what you've got to gain versus what you've got to lose.
Absolutely. To run you through the final qualifying order, we do have Rapid Gopher in P1, looking to get back-to-back podiums here after his P2 last week around Abu Dhabi. Then we've got Rapid OG in P2, Beast P3, Tuga P4, Mythbusters P5, Komi-san P6, Leclerc P7, Halo P8, Paddy Pat in P9, CJ in P10, Donwar P11, Collateral Zoom P12, Jar Jar in P13, Poloski in P14, Alberto Maracucha in P15, Oliver Square in 16th, Alfredo in 17th, Monster in 18th, Crazy I Do It in P19, and Crew Steamers rounding out the grid there, not being able to settle lap time, unfortunately for the Aston Martin car. But you've got to consider a lot of these drivers would have put in a fair bit of practice. Let's take, for example, Rapid Gopher saying he loves the track over in the Discord, which of course you can join. Feel free to click below on the Twitch stream or even on the YouTube. Get involved in the community over at PRL. You might be quick enough to come and race these guys. If you feel like you are, absolutely go for it. But we do have Beast saying he got purple Sector 1 and Sector 2. So Rapid Gopher really found a lot of his time through that final sector.
Yeah, and, all fair play to him. He hooked the lap up. It's all good having purple sector 1, purple sector 2 if you bin it in sector 3. That's not hooking up a lap. That's not a sensational lap. It's the overall average. It's being good in sector 1, maybe good in sector 2, but then great in sector 3 and hooking up that lap. That's what counts. That's what scores the points. It's the execution and not the potential that matters in a qualifying session. But Beast still starting very, very strong in this race. Still got a lot of opportunity over the course of the next 25 laps, but we don't know. It's 1 lap in qualifying versus 25 laps in the race. And of course, these ones, while there are points on offer in qualifying, it's these points for the race that matter the most. These are the big bucks. This is where you earn your money when it comes to the championship. And this is where all of these drivers are going to be vying for that win, doing everything they can, both on track, consistency, pace, and most importantly as well, strategy, making up a very big contingent of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
Absolutely. And, to add on to that as well, if drivers aren't necessarily feeling too confident about their race pace, could they have gone for a more qualifying orientated setup to really try and maximise their potential result here, as we are getting underway here with the formation lap. So we can have a little bit of a look at the tyre strategies being used. Leclerc opting for the soft tyres, but he is the odd one out. Everyone else going for that medium compound.
Yeah, so sort of taken to more of an orthodox strategy, I suppose, here at Jeddah. But the thing is that you come into a race with sort of an idea, that prep that you've done, that strategy that you're used to, whether that's, going mediums for, say, 10, 11, 12 laps, then hards the rest of the way. But you can't necessarily predict that it's going to be plain sailing. You almost have to predict the unpredictable and go, hang on, there might well be a safety car, there could be a VSC at some point. How is that going to change my strategical dynamic? And always have that in the back of your head. Always go with the track as it is, which you assume is going to be green flag running all the way to the end, but then also have a contingency on this area of the race. What do I pit on this area of the race? What am I going to pit on? How do I respond to those around me? That's then really where you can maximize your opportunities. But I would say probably the vast majority of them under normal circumstances going for that medium hard strategy. Interesting to see what the McLaren does, looking probably then for a punchy start. We'll see what he can do obviously in the early moments of this race on those softs, betting himself into the race and maybe going for a more aggressive 2-stop strategy. I know we saw the predicted softs and mediums, but tyre deg here at Jeddah is remarkably high.
Absolutely, and you're considering as well being behind the hot stuffy engine of a car in front in a DRS train for the full 10, 11 laps, you're looking to really try and get out of those soft tyres. It can really be a challenge for a lot of these drivers, and even challenges for the drivers at the highest level. The likes of Brendan Lay tend to quite often struggle with soft compound tyres around Jeddah. But again, we did see in the Formula 1 sim racing series slightly earlier in the week that they were more than happy to try and send overtakes left, right and centre. I know Otis Lawrence, one of the Veloce drivers, he is a big fan of starting on the soft compound tyres around Jeddah here. So perhaps Leclerc might just be trying to replicate something he might have done in previous iterations back in the previous years on this game. But I feel like unless it was a safety car, he could have already put himself on the back foot. But we will have to wait and see, because at the end of the day, it's sim racing. It's part of the beauty that, Zach, you'll know as well as anyone, anything can happen.
That's why we love it. or well, depending on what side of the coin you're on, you love it or you hate it when it comes to anything can happen. Interestingly enough, though, a couple of them missing their pit box, Leclerc and Patty Pat. Of course, Leclerc will now be starting on the back foot, while also already starting on the back foot. We're waiting for crew steamers to line up on the grid in P20. We'll go to the lights. Let's see what they're in store for Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely. You can see everyone getting prepped, making sure they're holding the clutch in. We've got 1 light, 2 light, 3 light, 4 lights, 5 lights. And away we go around the Jeddah Corniche circuit. Let's have a look to see how well we can get a couple starts. We can see a couple drivers already bogging down. Those of which who got that grid penalty had to go slightly further back in their box. Not necessarily get the best start and the best run down into turn 1. We've already had a sideways moment there from one of the McLarens. I do believe that was Leclerc, which of course will not benefit him in the slightest. And we've got an Alpine round already. Oh, we've got 2 DNFs. And I do believe that's the first safety car of the night, Zach. That didn't take us long at all.
Well, that is about as many corners as Nathan Richards can count, and that is incredible. About 4 corners into this race, and we've already lost an Alfa Romeo and the Alpine of Patty Pat, of course, a huge influencer when it comes to the sim racing scene. I would love to hear his reaction to the start of this race. He is going to be absolutely livid, is the very, very passionate man, of course, driving the Alpine. A safety car already in effect then. What is this going to mean when it comes to the strategies? Are they going to commit to the bit and stay on what their gut has told them is the best idea for the strategy? Or are we going to see a couple of people come off them and maybe change their dynamic?
Well, this is going to be the part of the race where you would have hoped that everyone would be comfortable and confident with what they picked right at the start of the race. Everyone's going to be in somewhat of an equal footing. The only driver which is probably going to benefit out of this will be Leclerc. He will be able to stretch those medium tyres, those soft tyres, a little bit longer until he's able to slap on the hards towards the halfway point of this race and then take them all the way to the end. It really depends on how much these drivers feel like they would be able to gain by going over to a set of hard tyres now and potentially going for a gamble towards the end of a race. Another safety car, a VSC, would come out, but at the end of the day, you don't want to risk your entire race plan on a gamble. It's common sense, really, at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, but then again, they're sim racers, so I don't know. Common sense sometimes doesn't really settle well with sim racers for the majority of them, but you can see a couple of people maybe either second guessing their strategy or having to repair some damage. It was a very chaotic start, so I think we are going to see a couple of people in for some new front wings. We've got CJQ in, of course, for the McLaren team, so coming in and actually, no, just a fresh set of tyres going on, so not a new wing.
Very interesting.
Maybe wanted a fresh set of mediums, but in doing so, he's lost a good 6 places of track position. I can't see the benefit of this.
No, while the rest of them have all replaced their front wings. So, maybe CJQ, slightly ahead of the curve, maybe slightly better, because of course there's a reason why they're racing and we're not, Zach. It's because we wouldn't be able to make it through turn 1. We wouldn't be able to make it through turn 1. I'll hold my hands up. If I didn't have ABS, I would already be in a wall on the start-finish straight, let's be honest.
I can drive without the assists, but that's like saying I can play the piano. It's just badly. Saying that, I have technically competed in some esports competition. One Deegan Fairclough, who now races in British F4. I was there when he won that F4 drive. I was just last, so it's fine. But yeah, no, there is family a reason as to why we're in the commentary booth and not in the cockpit, because it's just easier. We get to talk about them driving and judge their driving while they are miles better than anything that we can do.
Absolutely. We get to sit here with a nice little cup of tea, maybe a coffee. Probably not at this time of the evening over here in the UK, but certainly when it gets to... No, we're not having coffee at 10:30 in the evening, Zach. Behave yourself.
Well, I'd have a cup of tea. I'm not too keen on. I've got my Pepsi Max, if that counts. It's got cap.
It is a brilliant shout. I do have a bottle of Pepsi Max next to me as well.
Well, you can't go wrong with Pepsi Max, can you? It's cheap. It's got no sugar in it, and it tastes good. What else do you want?
It's brilliant. It hydrates you. It's got a little bit of fizz to it.
It's got that twang. It's like salt and vinegar crisps as well. It's like it tastes good and it singes your throat, and it's perfect. Great commentary snack. And welcome to Commentators Under Safety Car, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. So, Zach, we are going to already segue you into one of the favourite bits I like to do, whether it's here, PSG, or wherever. Right? I don't really mind. Hamsters. Right? Unutilised power efficiency, as we do see CJQ diving it back into the pits, trying to get off those medium tyres already. Perhaps didn't cue a front wing repair. Let's have a look.
No, he didn't.
There we go.
Oh, no. That is a solid F in chat.
Wow. That's unfortunate, but again, safety car still out. He'll be able to catch up to the back of a pack. With drivers being on somewhat differing tyres at this point, we can potentially see a couple of them maybe try and go for a couple bold moves here and there. But let's swiftly get away from the sim racing talk and let's get onto the hamsters, right?
The important stuff.
Absolutely. How many hamsters do you reckon it takes to manufacture a front wing for a Formula 1 car? You're thinking about the modelling, the printing, all that sort of stuff.
Are we talking about like the nutrition of the engineer as well, or are we just talking about the pure manufacturing process of the front wing?
Let's keep it out of nutrition at the moment. We can endeavour into that in the second safety car, which is inevitable to happen.
That's another question. What F1 team would scran some hamsters when they're trying to do some R&D? I don't know. Maybe that's one for another safety car, probably later on in the race. I don't know, because following our conversation a little bit earlier on regarding how many hamsters it takes to power a Formula 1 car, I think it's going to be quite surprisingly low. But then again, I don't actually know how much energy demand it takes to manufacture a Formula 1 front wing. I mean, do you know the answer?
We can have a rough estimate, right? So you're looking at a computer being powered for a CAD model, so you're already looking at probably about 40 hamsters to power the computer long enough for you to download a model off the internet. Then you're looking to send that to a 3D printer where it'd print it, and they can take up to 40 hours. So, we're looking at a very large extortionate amount of time. High-powered lasers.
Home don't know what's coming to them, do they?
No, mate, we might be running out of hamsters. We might have to start going over to the guinea pigs. But, fortunately, Bert Mylander doesn't like the sound of us using so many hamsters and so many guinea pigs, causing them to go extinct. So he's bringing the safety car back in, and we're about to get underway with some more racing. But the real question is, where does Rapid Gopher decide to go? And will he give his somewhat of a track mate, his clan mate, a little bit of a heads up about where he's going to be going here?
Well, maybe, or he just wants to get the best start possible. Let's see, as we run away back to green flag running here in Jeddah. Still weaving around, waiting to put his foot down, and here we go.
Here we go, it's on once again. Let's hopefully try and make it through 3 corners here, but we can already see Beast using a little bit more of our battery, having a little look to the inside, a little bit of a dummy, a little bit of a fake send, as we see Tuga absolutely not doing anything of a sort, taking the Lewis Hamilton line there. He's going to lose him a couple of positions. It didn't work out this time, perhaps because he's in the wrong car, but at the end of the day, he's still looking to try and close up this gap. He's made a slight mistake, not the end of the world. It happens. He's just got to keep his head down, keep himself focused, understand the position he's in, and climb himself back up to the where his true pace really lies during this race. As we are starting to see mistakes creep in here from drivers left, right, and centre. Beast getting a little bit caught off guard. We've had AlphaTauri, Red Bull, both go wide there as well. We will have to keep an eye on the track warnings here as well, Zach, because they can be very, very strict for these drivers.
We can. We saw how many invalidations we got over the course of qualifying. You get 2 warnings and then you get a slam dunk 3-second time penalty on your third. So you have to treat each warning effectively as losing you a second. And you have to treat them as currency as well. How many track limits warnings do you have at different stages in the race? And being very, very careful. Couple of moves further back, you can see Mornster trying to move his way past Crazy Idol in the Williams. 2 wide, 2 deep as they run their way towards the final sector. Of course, the battle for the back end of the field, incredibly close between all of them, it must be said, and a bit of contact to the rear end of that Williams. Hopefully no damage to the Aston Martin, because he was one that had to come in under the safety car. We've got Komistan trying to put some pressure onto the Haas in P3, maybe doing some rear gunner work to allow his teammate, of course, of Rapid Gopher and Rapid OG to get away from this pack early on.
Yes, absolutely. It would be a very sensible decision to try and look out for your teammate having that title charge, looking to move himself further up in the standings. And of course, you think about it, yes, it's an individual championship, but at the same time, winning a Constructors title is nothing to scorn about, right? We've already mentioned it's somewhat one-sided at the Alfa Romeo side, it's somewhat one-sided at the Haas side. These are the performances that people remember. Let's take Abu Dhabi for an example, right? Sergio Perez, horrendously off the pace for the majority of the season, puts up one stellar performance around Abu Dhabi. He's hailed as a hero. Mexican Minister of Defense. Could we see Mythbusters trying to do something very similar? Or are we going to see him get overtook around the outside through the hairpin with a little bit of contact to the inside there as well? That's going to give Leclerc a shout on that soft compound tyre. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. We're going to have to keep an eye on Leclerc as well. As Komi-san, who's just fallen slightly further back. Hopefully he's not picked up any sort of end plate damage. But so far, he's looking to keep himself cracking on as Halo does let him back through there.
Yeah, he does. So I mean, for Komi-san, I don't really know. It's difficult to go around the outside there. It is slightly banked, so you can get away with it. Just an unfortunate thing. Carried too much speed, locked the rears. The car went sideways. That is Tuga going off the road, I think, without a front wing to contend with. So he's going to be crawling his way back to pit lane, tumbling down the order. That is not what he'd wanted to see at all. Leclerc versus Mythbusters into the final corner. The McLaren assumes the inside, finds his way through onto the podium. Now he's got some clear air to fight with those softs.
And this is exactly what he's going to be after, that little bit of a cool breeze, hitting those tyres, cooling them down just a little bit, enough where he's going to be able to somewhat save a little bit of fuel. A little bit of a fight for the lead, but I believe they're just looking to try and swap positions backwards and forwards. Or maybe not, because they're going too wide in Sector 1. Please behave yourself, guys.
Oh, that got very close. The Alfa
He's
Romeo
still
comes
there.
back on. He's still there. Gopher takes the lead back. That didn't look like swapping positions to me.
No, I thought they was going to be a lot more friendly. I thought, it's not worth showing. They'll just pass each other in turn 1. They'll keep it all fair and square. Well, gloves are off. Elbow pads are off. They're having a bit of a scrap.
Well, I mean, they have got 3 seconds back to Leclerc, who, I mean, it's not the biggest margin in the world, but it's definitely something that you can work with. We have got Halo Tuga and Oliver Sequeira into the pit lane. I believe Beast was in as well on that particular lap, so not looking great for the Ferrari driver currently sat P4 in the championship, who will ideally want to maximise his points and get after that top 3, particularly with Shane MC not here. Another safety car. Darragh out of this race.
You just knew it was going to happen. It was more of a question of when, not if. But brings us on to a potentially fantastic point. Guinea pigs, are they more viable than hamsters, Zach?
They're bigger. They are bigger, so you'd assume they've got more stored energy.
Yes.
But are their cheeks as storable as hamsters? That is the question. I'm gonna joules per guinea pig. Is that something you can search on Google without getting safe searched?
No comment. No comment. I've done it before on university computers, and I've not had anyone come talk to me, but I feel like that's just because they've given up on me after my previous searches. But drivers diving it into the pit lane now, off the medium tyres. Surely they're looking to somewhat go to hards here at this point. Or over to mediums again? Okay. 2 stops on the cards then.
Well, it seems so. Surely, I mean, surely you'd sort of tick off the mandatory tyre change and then go the mediums to the end as long as possible. But then again, I suppose you do have to sort of deal with what you've got. Can you go to the end of this race on a set of hard compound tyres, knowing that chances are there might well be another safety car towards the end of this race? It's a decision that has been split. You can see a number of drivers taking to the hards, a number of them taking to the mediums, a couple of them going for the softs. So this strategy is going pretty much every single way it possibly can. And once again, like we spoke about in qualifying, we aren't going to know what the best choice is until we know what the best choice is.
I know, it sounds very well booked, but, you are completely right. It'll be until the end of a race where we'll look back and we'll think, okay, those hards, they did a number, they did a great job. Potentially until another safety car, where they could potentially look to go over to the soft compound tyres, but that's all in a theoretical landscape. We don't know what the optimal strategy is at this moment in time. Everything's up in the air, the 2 safety cars. Not only disturbing what the drivers would have planned for the strategy, but disturbing all the notes we've made, so we're going to have to throw them out the window, Zach.
You make notes?
Yes. I've got one about the kilojoules of guinea pigs and how much nutrition they need to produce certain amounts of energy.
So only the important notes, not the ones about sim racing.
No, don't.
What type of commentator would prepare notes about a broadcast?
I don't know. I was a bit confused, to be quite honest with you, because I thought we was doing MotoGP.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one off at PRL. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah, that is... I mean, to be fair, Saudi wouldn't be a bad track for some.
No, don't. It would be absolutely lethal. You know it as much as I do.
Lethal but fun. Lethal but fun.
It'll be like the old Bathurst track they used to do with the superbikes there. Not on.
Oh.
Would not work.
Oh, down the mountain on some bikes. No, thank you.
They used to do it. They were crazy.
Yeah, well, bikes are weird. Like I was telling you about, I was doing some mini bike commentary over the weekend down at Lid. And you've got kids going sort of 45, 50 mile an hour on bikes, and you talk to them, and they have literally not long come out of nappies. They're like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and they are like, their knees are on the floor, carving their way like into apexes and things. It is sensational how brave some of those riders are.
I mean,
so you just have to sort of give your hats off to them, didn't you?
Absolutely. Not only that, but at the age of 8, we're already taller than Darragh Thacker.
Well, exactly. Oh, Joshua Griffin, you have just earned my respect. You had it already, but that is the Zach Sweeney stamp of approval. I'm sure he's already told you. But the first time I ever met Darragh Thacker, it was a very sunny Snetterton last June, I think. And he pulled up the gate. I ran out to the gate because I had my passes, and I ran to I had to give them to him. He got out of the car, and I was like, "Wow, you are a lot shorter than I expected." And ever since, every broadcast, without fail, I have at some point managed to bring up Darragh Thacker being Darragh Thacker. He loves it really, though. It's fine.
It's a very interesting scenario with myself. Went to the Alpine Garage, of course, with the likes of George Morgan and Tom. Not really much is said behind virtual ball around, physical appearances. And to be quite frank, I'm one of the taller people you'll ever see. I'm 6'6", 199 centimeters tall. They had the shock of their life. They wasn't expecting me to be a giant. I was sitting in the sim rig, I stood up and they all sort of just looked up at me and thought, "Oh,
wow,
you're tall. How tall are you? Did you ever play basketball?" And we went along that entire route of conversation, very much the opposite of Darragh. But he's never been asked if he played basketball.
Oh, no, unless it's like those little Tykes hoops that you get for kids.
Still struggle to dunk, but at the end of the day,
no, of course he would.
Try.
He might well do. It's the same with Arjuna Kankipati as well, another commentator on in the sim racing scene, being as tall as he is. And Leary, when they commented at ESL, they had to get him a little step to stand up to when they were presenting on the desk. Otherwise, the disparity in height was just too much for the camera to sort of focus in on. It was sensational. Anyway, the important stuff is back on because safety car's in this lap.
Oh, we didn't even get to talk about guinea pigs in the F1
I know.
cast.
Next one.
Okay, all right. Next safety car. We're not counting VSCs for these conversations, by the way. We are strictly doing it just for the normal safety cars. But Collateral Zoom now getting the option to pull away from a pack whenever he chooses to do so. This feels very much like Misano. I don't like this. I don't like this, Zach. He's waiting too long. And he's timed it perfectly, hasn't he? Getting that little bit of a run on Monster, catching him a little bit by surprise, which of course would put him under the pressure from the likes of Rapid Gopher and CJQ slightly further back, deciding not to make a move, willing to stay behind there. As I say that, Leclerc had a little peep towards the inside there of Rapid OG, but had to back out of it, knew it wasn't really feasible, because otherwise he could potentially be losing a position to Mythbusters behind, who is on that equal age tyre. And you've got to consider these three up at the top, they're going to very much be somewhat of a cork in the bottle for the rest of these races behind. Oh dear.
We've had more carnage, I think.
We have.
We've got an Aston Martin and a Ferrari into the pit lane on this lap. We've had, I think that's Alfredo, one of the Aston Martins going slowly at the back end of the field. It's typical Jeddah stuff. Rapid Gopher, of course, trying to carve his way back through the field. Bit of contact to the rear end of the McLaren, trying to settle himself back into this race. You've got Leclerc now off the softs onto the mediums, fighting with the championship leader as they batter their way through the sweeping section of the of Sector 2. And there's contact, and Leclerc and Rapid OG are into the barrier. Championship leader now out of the points and with some damage.
Absolutely tragic there for Rapid OG. It's not the sort of result he would be looking for from out this race, but you've got to consider as well, he's still currently looking in P9, and for the most part, that front wing looks somewhat intact, but we will have to keep an eye just to make sure it is going to be working absolutely stupendously for that man. But on the other hand, we've got one of his rivals during this race, Rapid Gopher, looking to get that move sorted sooner rather than later on CJQ, but CJ is not letting this one go easy at all. Went to the inside, took a defensive line, a little bit of rubbing his racing. It's never hurt nobody at the end of the day, has it? It's a lie.
Oh, no, yeah, it quite literally has.
It really has, but we will see. I do believe that was Mythbusters diving it back into the pit lane, just Komi-san as well. So we do have Leclerc staying out there. It was either Leclerc or Rapid OG, which the front end plate came off. Neither of them decide to pit. They're willing to stick it out there, and you can already see Leclerc struggling to get back on the power.
Yeah, of course, that's going to be a slight skill issue when it comes to planting the throttle down. You have got to be very, very careful, particularly now he is on the harder compound tyre on those mediums. Not doing too bad when it comes to front-end grip, though. A little bit tentative on the steering through the first sector, but nothing major. In fact, actually gets a good run on Tuga going towards, of course, the back end. Starting Sector 2, this long, long left-hander that is slightly banked, and you can carry that speed. Sensationally done from the McLaren. Doesn't seem like he's suffering too much.
Oh no, we've got Alberto Maracucci out in Sector 1. If you had 3 safety cars on your bingo for tonight in Tier 2, you could scratch that one off. Well, now,
Guinea pigs.
they're certainly from Guinea. Well, yes. Well, who's going to pit? Why are they going to pit? And will there be any guinea pigs in the pit lane for the tyre change? Because I feel like they could do a pretty good job.
How many guinea pigs does it take to change a tyre? Probably quite a few, I reckon.
Well, it'd still be quicker than the Kick F1 team, let's be honest.
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, I won't comment. I won't make enemies. God, look at you, slandering other F1 teams. Now you've gone to the Alpine factory. It's...
Honestly.
The retainer invoice must be insane for them to have you slandering the other teams. Anyway, into the pit lane comes Mordster, CJQ. We've got Plovsk in as well, Leclerc as well. We've got Tuga, Alfredo. A lot of drivers then coming into the pit lane. Question is, if they have ticked off their mandatory pit stop, where obviously they swap compound, can they get to the end on the mediums?
No.
No?
I'm fairly confident they can't.
What if the safety car goes on for a couple more laps, though? Maybe. But
at the same time, if that does happen, lap 24, lap 25, those tyres are already at, the precipice of what they're able to do. They've given all their life. You would just be very fortunate to not be able to pick up a puncture there. But we have seen drivers before run all the way up until that 95% here to make sure they can keep their tyres alive in an operating window. We've seen it done before. We've seen it done in, similar conditions, not necessarily with the tight walls of Jeddah, but with very harsh, very strict track limits such as Austria. There is a potential for it, but I wouldn't want to bet anything on it.
I wouldn't either. Definitely not a championship or anything like that. So probably going to play it safe. A couple of drivers going on to mediums. Obviously, Halo, Tuga, Mordster all onto some fresh rubber. You've then also got the Williams of Crazy onto some fresh hards, Poloska as well, and the Mercedes onto some fresh mediums. So a couple of drivers taking their way down pit lane. Still no Alpine of Collateral Zune coming in. Is it to the point where he's sort of just predicting more safety cars and is actually prioritizing track position over sort of the strategical gains of potentially coming into the pit lane, because he's still staying out? For him to come in now would seem effectively, now everyone's bunched back up, go right to the back of the field once again, but we are nearing the end of the safety car allotment for the entirety of this race.
Yeah, you got to think, if any more big incidents happen, we've only got one more chance for the safety car to come out. So, Burt Mailander certainly earning his money today. But will it be a full payout? Will we get all 4? I feel like it might just be a matter of time before we're able to tell. We do have a report in from Alberto Maracuccia. The Williams, currently in P17 after DNFing, believes that pit assist on the exit would be turned on, and unfortunately ran his car straight into the wall coming out the pit lane. It's not the way you want it to go. It is just unfortunate at the end of the day.
Yeah. Suboptimal, as some would say. It's not the way that you want things to go at all, because, ideally you just want to be out on track going quickly. And the moment that you aren't is probably a cause for concern, I reckon.
And to be fair as well, this is one of the stupidest pit lanes, one of the stupidest pit lane exits I've seen in recent memory.
Oh yeah, because you're straight back onto the racing line. Oh well, you are. By the time you're back up to speed, you are effectively just on a collision course with those that want to take the race line out of the chicane. It's remarkable. Pit lanes on racetracks are just sensationally stupid at some points.
So when I was looking at the design of this track for the first time, I thought it was going to do something similar to Singapore, where they make it wrap round. You've got to follow that entirety. It won't just chuck you out straight into a racing line. It'll feed you back into the track, heading out of turn 2 for that little kink at turn 3. That's where I thought it was going to output you. Then I saw the painted lines and I thought, that's stupid. They'll change that. And here we are, and they still haven't changed it.
It was like the initial Paul Ricard pit entry as well, where you immediately had to swerve off the racing line. So, God forbid anyone actually tries to go for an overtake on you out of the exit at the final corner and you just absolutely get punted off into the pit lane. It's fun. They're essentially meant to be slip roads, the exits of the pit lane, where you sort of just gradually feed yourself back onto the circuit. But in some cases, it's certainly not the case. It's like trying to start a qualifying lap at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Obviously, the way you do it, you don't do the full out lap for the entire Nordschleife. You sort of turn right at the end of the GP loop, and then start your lap. Most people stay to the right quite nicely so they can, give loads of space to those that are finishing their laps coming off the Nordschleife. A couple of people, though, decide to take the race line for the final corner. As people are then finishing their laps at the Nords, obviously go straight into the back of them and ruin their, 9-minute lap in some cases. So, the design of some layouts are remarkably special. Collateral Zoom, though, to take a second safety car restart.
Yeah, it certainly worked out very well for him calling it as late as he did, but you got to consider Rapid go from 5-lap fresher medium tyres compared to the 10-lap old hards. Could potentially get himself a very good run down here into turn 1 if he's paying very close attention, and you can see that exactly doing what he needs to do, get him following back within that slipstream, deploying a little bit of battery to ensure he's going to be right up the rear end and causing that little bit of pressure to the likes of Collateral Zoom, with Rapid OG going for a very strange move to the inside, but I'm not sure he was really trying to go for the overtake. That might have been more of a defensive jolt over to the left-hand side.
Yeah, maybe just a deterrence more than anything to say, let's not fight as sort of at the moment. Let's settle back into this race, build a bit of a gap, and then battle. Collateral Zoom, though, then leads through Sector 1. Rapid Gopher unable to find a way through, albeit will want to be finding a way through in the near future, is to build an early lead. Inside line as they run their way towards the next braking zone. Nicely done from the Haas. Runs the Alpine out wide. Rapid OG immediately follows then on that inside. The much better line. Now he's in direct sight of his rival, his esports teammate as such, and of course, as they were 1 and 2 to start this race. Let's see what the Haas and Alfa Romeo can do as they look to eagerly pull away from the rest of the pack as the Alpine holds up the rest of the field.
Yeah, it's certainly looking to try and get themselves moving, as we've got a
No
VSC.
way. For what?
I'm not sure. It's a Ghost virtual safety car.
It just is a virtual safety. It just happens.
Zach, hold on, I got race director in my ear. Okay, one of the guinea pigs from one of the engines has ran out on circuit.
That's it. They've gone on strike.
That's why we don't use guinea pigs or hamsters to power the cars. Hopefully the guinea pig's going to be put back in the cage. But until then, Leclerc potentially find himself a brilliant window as we do see Collateral Zoom there diving it into the pits. That George Russell sort of strategy to try and keep a little bit of track position, not necessarily working out in their favour.
Yeah, because he comes in immediately after the safety car comes in, which means as we go back to green flag running, not only does he still have to do the majority of his pit stop, but because everyone's already bunched up, he loses all that track position anyway. So not the best of ideas from him there, but still plenty of race left to go to see what he can do moving forwards. Leclerc out there showcasing his pace, still maybe with a bit of damage, but it doesn't seem like it's hindering him too much. He's on the back of the top 2, and we've potentially got a 3-way fight for the lead. They run their way towards the back end of the circuit right now. The McLaren looks to go to the outside. He's brave on the brakes, tries to carry that medium speed through. Not quite enough. Does he get given space on the exit? Enough, but not enough of a run to see him back through. In fact, actually, yes, he does. He presses the overtake button, finds his way through, but in the end has to back out and concede because that would not have been a very clever move.
No, but he does have another overtaking opportunity here as well. You can see him deploy the battery on his wheel with that green bar showing he's using the overtake to its full effectiveness, and it can be so powerful in this year's game. It's almost a joke, but he's been able to get that move sorted, covering back over towards the apex, running it a little bit deep, but holding onto that position. Even more crucially, holding onto that 1 second buffer to Rapid Gopher. As I say that, the gap is slowly starting to grow. These two really need to put their bickering aside and understand they need to work together. If they lose that 1 second gap, Rapid Gopher could be storming away with a win here.
Yeah, exactly. That comes back to what we were saying about that sort of short-term team matery or something. Darragh has been the track mates at the moment with the McLaren now looking to go to the left-hand side. So no track mates between the pair of them there. So close to contact. I think actually a slight touch between the pair of them. Not the thing they want whatsoever. Now 1.3 seconds is the gap to Gopher, and when they are so close and competitive like they are, that 1.3 seconds is going to be ever harder to go and catch, particularly given how quick Gopher was throughout the duration of qualifying. Something like 3/10 was the pole margin. If he's able to sustain that in the race, he could then build and build and build on that lead margin. That is the last thing that OG wants. He needs to push like crazy, sort of in the short term to get back into that DRS range, to get back after Gopher, and to keep this lead fight alive. Not the best of racecraft showcase between those two drivers. It would have been better to put their differences aside and fight for the lead as opposed to fight for P2. But hey, it's done. Let's see what they can do as the race progresses.
Absolutely. You got to think Rapid Gopher is in a leading position here, not only on track, but mentally as well. Understanding that if Rapid OG wants to catch back up, get back in that DRS, he's going to have to deploy a lot of battery to catch up to Rapid Gopher. Nothing stopping Rapid Gopher from just taking it a little bit easier on the battery, letting him catch back up to the DRS, and then re-pulling that gap, or maybe managing it towards that 1.2, 1.1 second as he's doing so effectively right now. But we do have a brilliant battle breaking out here for P8 on track. We've got Beast, Tuga, and just Komi-san all going wheel to wheel, really trying to squabble over any sort of position they can find. And we might have Komi-san going for a run here into the final corner, down the inside. Is Beast going to leave him room? Just barely squeezed past there. Brilliant stuff there from Komi-san to be even able to carry that speed on the inside. It can be so easy to get pinched in towards the apex and lose a lot of speed coming out of that corner. But Komi-san really showing what those fresh medium tyres are able to do compared to the rest. But he is just getting boxed in at the moment, isn't he? It's not the most friendly of overtaking circuits as Jeddah.
No, it really isn't. It gets very, very busy, very, very quickly, very densely packed as well, and easy to be overwhelmed. But we've got 5 cars, nose to tail, battling their way through the streets of Jeddah. So close to contact, and actually looking to the outside was the AlphaTauri. That would have been an audacious move if he went for a big snap of oversteer from Tuga, goes off the road. Now Komi-san is going to try and set up an overtake. Well, he's not, because Tuga just completely disregards the track limits, gets himself a 3-second time penalty. Now the AlphaTauri is going to start to feel that frustration, getting boxed in behind. He's shown what pace he can do on these fresh mediums, but he's not able to realize that potential because he's stuck in this train. And this is one of those scenarios where you need to be fighting your way through. There's no time to work together. You need to make the most of what you've got at hand before it's wasted.
Absolutely. You can see that with Monster taking full advantage, getting that overtake sorted as soon as they possibly could, as we do have an instant though with Poloski down in Sector 1. I do believe he ran just a little bit wide, maybe clips his wing, but just Komi-san showing us how the overtakes work so efficiently and so effectively through that second sector and heading into the final sector. Almost got Beast with that little bit of battery deployment, but having just sit back here, use the DRS, understand now that, okay, you've got a position sorted, you've got to just keep your head down, keep focused, use the slipstream, use all those tools possible to really be able to try and maximize everything you possibly can. And now we're going to see this split in strategy. We're also going to see an absolute outrageous dive bomb to the inside from Halo. Didn't quite work, but, you know, you can't knock him for trying.
Yeah, it was a good attempt, but unfortunately it stopped at an attempt. Gave it a go, though. I suppose that's all you can really do.
Silver lining.
Not really sure as to why he would risk so much at this stage in the race. It's not like he's fighting for a championship or whatever, but hey-ho, whatever tickles his fancy. It could well have just been one of those accidental moves. This is a battle, though. Komi-san versus Beast, the Ferrari versus the AlphaTauri. Into turn number 8, but not quite close enough to really manufacture a move, despite the fact that the AlphaTauri is going to be the quicker of the two. Rapid Gopher and Rapid OG onto softs. Are they getting to the end of this race?
They should. 8 laps on a set of softs, not unheard of. But Leclerc, at the end of this race, as long as he's able to somewhat keep within the DRS, going on to that fresh set of mediums, you're thinking towards the last 2-3 laps, he'll have the advantage on the tyres compared to the softs. He'll be quicker, and he'll be the one looking to try and make moves, putting himself in a brilliant position, but he's just got to make sure he keeps within that DRS, because you can imagine what it's going to be like for these soft compound tyre runners to try and navigate their way through these battles, which we can see currently happening out on track, especially this one between Komi-san and Beast.
Yeah, it's a sensational battle. Of course, you can see the rain light blinking on the Ferrari. That means he's below 10% of his energy recovery system. That overtake button that gives him near enough 160 extra brake horsepower to use. Halo now this time going to the outside of turn number 1, trying to catapult his way into second place. He's got CJQ on his inside and that McLaren side by side towards the chicane. Nicely done from the AlphaTauri. That is how you get a move done through the first chicane here at Jeddah. Back to this battle though. Komi-san is through on the Ferrari of Beast and already trying to eye up a move on Monster. He has got the advantage when it comes to battery though, and he's got more in reserve to use.
Yeah, not only that as well, he's got a slightly fresher tyre on that little AlphaTauri car. He's certainly pedaling the absolute hell out of that car. Really looking to try and push every sort of inch he can on this circuit, maximising the track, opening up the apex. He's really doing a fantastic job trying to just extract every single bit of pace those medium tyres has, because if I'm not mistaken, he is good to go to the end. But with slightly fresher tyres than those around him, I feel like he believes he's in somewhat of a commanding position here, where he's able to somewhat navigate how quickly the cars around him, being able to force them to somewhat push their tyres a little bit harder, getting somewhat lured into a battle with him when he knows that's exactly what he wants. He just wants him to run on marbles, he wants him to wear out the tyres a little bit more. Certainly done a fantastic job, moved himself up into P4, as we see his teammate here applying the pressure to Oliver Sequeira up at the front of the field. Medium versus hard. Again, both these drivers theoretically could stretch it to the end. It's going to very much come down to which driver's going to be able to somewhat hold on to the rampaging Rapid Gopher and Rapid OG on that soft compound tyre, as they've caught up to the back of his pack now as well. They're going to be looking to try and get some moves done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because time firmly not on their side. Change for the lead here potentially as Halo looks to the outside, using so much more of the track relative to the Red Bull, able to just sweep his way around the outside of Sequeira as if he wasn't there. Fastest lap of the race for Rapid Gopher at 30 dead on some fresh soft compound tyres as he catapults his way back into the top 10, already breathing down the neck of Tuga in that Red Bull. Will not be too long until he eyes up that move. When it comes to these guys, of course, confidence is half of the battle. They know that they're on the quicker tyre. They know that the softs are fast. They're now going to have that confidence, that morale to boost them through straight down the inside, no questions asked, because he knows that car is going to grip. He's got trust in himself. He's got trust in his machine. And now all he's got to do is maintain that longevity and get to the checkered flag.
Realistically, looking at maybe 2, 3, 4 overtakes per lap, realistically, you can chuck it up the inside on that fresher compounded tyre. You will just have so much more grip, as we see on the timing tyre on the left-hand side. Rapid Gopher moving up now into P7. 4 seconds to close up to Beast, and then 2 more seconds to catch up to this battle here. Currently looking for that P3 spot, but CJQ and Komi-san are certainly putting up an entertaining fight for us at the moment, and even Mythbusters is looking to get himself involved, but he might have to wait another couple of laps until those hard tyres really come into that optimal window and he can really start trying to put pressure onto these medium runners ahead of him.
Yeah, exactly that. You're just waiting really for your prime moment and then seizing that opportunity. Heading our way into the final 6 laps of this race then, as Halo will tick his way onto lap 20 of 25. Couple of changes as OG ticks past the Red Bull. The problem is with Jeddah being so few when it comes to overtaking opportunities, you're waiting a long time to actually get that move done. Around the outside, slight bit of a lock-up there from Mythbusters in his pursuit for 4th place. CJQ goes the long way around a turn 2, brings it back through the kink of 3, back down the inside to round off Sector 1, well, the first half of Sector 1, I should say. Mythbusters is back through. Great mutual respect shown between the pair of them. Nicely done, of course, as Mythbusters is doing all he can, I think, maybe, to assist his teammate in catching back up.
Yeah, and we've also got a little bit of a battle here between the 2 fresher of the compounds. Leclerc really trying to take an opportunistic attack here onto Rapid OG. Of course, both on the fresher compounded tyres. Tuga going off track there once again. Leclerc was very, very close, within a couple thousandths of being able to get that move sorted on Rapid OG, but just having to sit back for a moment here, waiting for that opportunity. You already mentioned it, waiting for that prime time on that set of tyres. And of course, Leclerc knows he's going to be waiting maybe 1 or 2 laps more, but you can clearly see here he has just as much pace on those fresh set of mediums as the fresh softs do. It's ridiculous being able to push so consistently and so aggressively on that tyre, as we see Rapid OG there go for the overtake. Turning towards the outside here for the left-hander.
Whoa.
Leclerc, that was very cheeky. Fair play. Fair play.
He did go off track ever so slightly, but I've got to respect the confidence just to go for it. He wasn't guaranteed space on the outside, and yet he sent it anyway. Confidence is half the battle, as I said. Sequeira on the outside of the AlphaTauri launching a counter-attack. Now we've got a Red Bull sandwich with some AlphaTauri bread, but for how much longer, as Mythbusters sends his way through to make it a double filling. And now there's contact. The Haas goes sideways. Komi-san tries to battle his way back to the outside on that run towards turn 5. Not quite is Mythbusters able to hang on to that final podium place. So we settle our way back 1, 2 and 3. Halo from Sequeira from San as they were. Final 5 laps of this race to come, and these guys giving it everything and just that little bit more as well. Rapid OG down in 9th place. Time is not on their side, as well as those softs are going to begin to deteriorate, whereas Leclerc, as we've touched on those mediums, they've got the longevity. He's able to be confident to push on them as well. He can push on them harder and not worry that they're going to fall off a cliff, and that's helping him maintain such a high standard of pace, but they've got such a way off the rest of the pack. Not only do they have to gain time, they also have to gain track position, and with only 4.5 laps left to go, that's easier said than done.
Yeah, it's looking like a bit of a challenge here, even for Rapid Gopher, who finds himself a good way up the field, looking about 6 seconds in front of the likes of Leclerc and Rapid OG. But again, mentioning those soft tyres, they're not looking as sharp as they once were, especially through that first sector. We saw Rapid OG getting a little bit of a slide on, Leclerc being able to pull a little bit of distance, but you got to consider, surely the odds are still going to be in Rapid Gopher's favour. 4-lap-old soft tyres compared to 11-lap-old mediums? Surely.
Oh, I know what I'd prefer to be on. I've got to be honest. And of course, couple that with some DRS, probably some overtake sprinkled into the mix. Well, neither of them have any. Both of them have DRS, so it is down purely to the tyres, side by side, just ahead. The Haas tries to go the long way around using that grip, keeps it on the track. However, the McLaren does give it a good go to the outside. Not quite enough, though. Gopher through into the top 5, making some great progress. And the next 3 lined up for him with 3 to go.
Surely he's got to be thinking about at least trying to get 1 per lap, if not trying to squeeze an occasional move here and there, because currently Halo 2.1 seconds out in front. I don't think those soft tyres are going to be able to give him that pace he needs to catch up to try and battle for this lead, because we could be seeing AlphaTauri working a little bit of genius magic here with Komi-san somewhat backing up the field with Mythbusters, Sequeira and of course Gopher all trapped in behind, giving his teammate a little bit of an operating window to really work in. Getting that safe buffer where they won't be, vulnerable to a last lap battery dump with a bit of DRS to try and get that move sorted. It could very much be working in AlphaTauri's favour here, and it's fantastic to see different teams trying these different strategies working together to really try and maximise their results. As we do see Rapid Gopher trying to maximise his own potential results here, trying to seize this move on Oliver Sequeira. It's very much going to be a matter of when, not if, because we can see he's just got so much more pace going onto that traction. With the DRS wide open now, Oliver Sequeira is just left with DRS and battery to dump, but it won't be enough for him to really try and go back on the offensive into this final corner. Rapid Gopher up into P4, looking for a 2v2 here.
He is. Unfortunately, we've lost the Mercedes of Polovsk, who is into the pit lane and has retired from the race. Down to just 15 then, but it was in the pit lane, so there's no concern for a full course yellow. 3 laps left to go then. 23, 24, 25 to round off round number 7 of the Prospects eRacing League Tier 2 here in Saudi Arabia. Halo and Komi-san have nailed the strategy. However, those mediums are going to be feeling a little bit worse for wear. Rapid Gopher, though, it must be said, has nailed this strategy. You look in comparison to Rapid OG, who, to be fair, has got back into the top 10 and is there in 8th, but hasn't quite seen that same linear progression that the Haas driver has. He has given himself the right tools and he has executed perfectly. Let's see if he's able to go all the way, though. Maybe, at the very least, you have to say it's a podium, maybe a P2, maybe, just maybe, a last lap overtake for the win.
Potentially. There's still, it doesn't necessarily seem like much, but 2 laps left of very competitive running, or should I say 2.5 laps left of very competitive running. You've got Komi-san currently holding on to that P2. Rapid Gopher can smell, he can see that red light flashing, low battery, down on power on the straight. Mythbusters as well will be looking at that thinking, okay, this is an opportunity for us to get a double podium here for Haas. We can certainly try and work with this, try and get a bit more momentum, try and really get a rebound heading into the next couple of rounds with the likes of Qatar coming up. It's going to be very interesting as we do see Mythbusters making that move up towards the inside of that final corner, and you can already see that gap starting to fall down rapidly because Halo is also running low on ERS, so this is where we will see the Haas cars really decide to try and push it and try and maximise their overall result here, with Rapid Gopher going down on the inside, just barely getting that move sorted. He's going to sweep around the outside for turn 2. Fantastic stuff there from Rapid Gopher. A little bit of wheel banging, but at the end of the day, no one's got hurt by it, Zach, okay?
Not this time. It's
no,
fine.
Never.
It's only okay when you get away with it. It's not illegal until you get caught.
Very true.
So stay in school, kids. Don't take that as good advice. It's a little bit wide, though. Does Rapid go for an uncharacteristic mistake from the Haas driver? See some of that progress become undone. He's now got to re-overtake Komi-san with just a lap and a half, well, a lap and 2/3 left to go in this race. The chance for the leader's gone. Mythbusters is out of this session, so a free promotion onto the podium. P2 is on. I think that might be his ceiling.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, you'd be considering having an awful lot of luck at swing Rapid Gopher's way for him to really be able to try and push slightly higher up than a P2 at this moment in time, with Halo 2.5 seconds out in the lead of this race now. But we are starting to see a couple of these different scenarios we were alluding to slightly earlier. Leclerc clearly showing those mediums of a right call at this point in the race, being able to pull a 2-second gap to Rapid OG, and now also being able to put a teammate in between himself and Rapid OG, overtaking CJQ to get up into 6th place. Fantastic stuff. You would only have to wonder what Rapid Gopher's pace would be like on this medium set of tyres. But would he have even been able to get up this high on the mediums?
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. You don't know, and again, it comes down. It's for hindsight. You can't live in the what ifs. You have to live in the now. Rapid Gopher looks to the outside of the AlphaTauri, who allows him through. 1 lap left to go, and 2 seconds plus a position to catch. It's going to be difficult, but the target is in sight. He's not given himself an easy run. But is he going to allow himself to live in regret, or is he going to push and give it absolutely everything with one final tour of the Jeddah Street Circuit to go? Can Halo be hunted down for the race lead? Both of these tyres are probably going to be in a similar range when it comes to the wear. However, through the first sector alone, that gap has come down by half a second.
Absolutely. Clearly showing he does have the pace. He does have that little bit of tyre longevity left to go. It's just, does he have enough of the race left to go to really be able to try and close up that gap a little bit more? Because as Murray Walker said very famously, catching is one thing, overtaking is another. He would really be banking on saving a little bit of that battery, waiting for DRS to be active to really try and get that overtake, once again heading down into the final corner, or perhaps even looking for a drag race up towards the line. But Rapid Gopher really trying to deploy everything he's got right now. It's 1.2 seconds. He won't get the benefit of DRS here, although it will be very, very close. Unfortunately for him, he won't have a DRS to pull himself in. He is just purely relying on that little sliver on the battery you can see on the wheel there. But you might just call it a little bit too short here today, because Halo, he's found himself in a brilliant position. He never made any mistakes. He's been consistent out front, and consistency is key here at PRL, and he comes home to win the Jeddah Grand Prix with Rapid Gopher putting a fantastic performance in P2. Just Komi-san P3 and Oliver Square on those 19-lap old hard tyres into P4.
Beautifully done by the AlphaTauri, it must be said. The two McLarens fly home in formation with 5 and 6. Neither of them with a front wing, as the game is showing. I'm not entirely sure how accurate that is, but fair play for getting it home if that is the case. But of course, for Halo, that was well managed. Really, really maturely driven, dealing with the pressure, because it's not easy having a driver as rapid as Gopher is, sort of clawing you down, seeing his progression throughout the race, and staying on those mediums for 15 laps. I think he went through 2 safety cars with them, pit on the one that came out on lap 10, stay with them for the one that came out a couple of laps later, and then committed to that, save the tyres, but yet still maintain some strong pace, and effectively came out of nowhere, showcasing that qualifying isn't the whole story, as long as you can translate that into some good pace, some good consistency, and as well as a good strategy, as well as, most importantly, a great execution over the course of the race.
Absolutely. He certainly measured himself up against the very finest here, getting those well-needed points in the championship as well. Rapid Gopher once again having to settle for P2, wasn't able to get the win here once again. But again, consistently up there, consistently building points on his championship rivals. He's doing exactly what he needs to do to really be able to try and walk away and challenge himself slightly further. Potentially looking to move up into Tier 1 next season. The driver over there going to the game, Oliver Square, kept those hard tyres alive, but for me, there's only one driver over there, and of course, that'll be Rapid Gopher, making those moves, going for a different strategy, being a little bit bolder. Certainly put on a very entertaining show, but I'll tell you what, do you want to do the honours, Zach, of running us through this final classification?
Course. Well, after 25 laps of racing from 8th on the grid, it was SSR Halo, Rapid Gopher and Komi-san making it a double AlphaTauri podium and completing it in 3rd. Oliver Sequeira from P4, then comes Leclerc after a very bold strategy on the softs in 5th. CJQ makes it a McLaren 5-6 ahead of Mythbusters, who drove a fantastic race. A late disconnection though sees it only 7th. Then comes the Alfa Romeo kick driver and championship leader of Rapid OG, Alfredo, and Collateral Zoom, who led a couple of laps of this race, rounding off the top 10. Beast, what could have been, and he was wasting that potential of qualifying, not the race the Canadian would have wanted, just outside the points at paying position. Mordster and Cruise Steamers P12 and 13th, the fast lap going the way of the Aston Martin. Tuga from Crazy Idol, Polovsk making it the first of our DNFs ahead of Marchucho, Yaja, Donwar and Patipat, of course, the bottom 2 making up the first set of DNFs on lap 1. Didn't even get through the first sector of this race before making it a DNF to their name. Josh, what a race that we saw, it must be said, and what a season we've got yet to come.
Yes, absolutely. If that was anything to go by, we could be in for an absolute manic time at Qatar, let's be honest. It's not necessarily built for Formula 1 cars. This Jeddah circuit, supposedly was. I'm not sure I quite believe it though. But Qatar, going to be a very interesting race. DRS trains left, right and centre. Going to be very close racing. Very limited overtaking opportunities. Similar to what we thought this was initially going to be. But clearly drivers making their own overtaking opportunities. Not necessarily going by the book. Certainly looking to try and make moves left, right and centre. But we do have a couple drivers in the podium interview space. Zach, are you able to see it?
Hopefully. I can see they're in there. I don't know if I can get in. Maybe. I don't know. We'll find out.
Right.
It's locked.
It's locked. Oh no. Right, well, I'll tell you what, we've got a bit of a snarl. Okay, he's disappeared. He's trying. Right, let's see if we can move Zach in so we can get him involved in a potential bit of a podium. Is it not working?
I mean, it allowed me in. I just don't know if I could hear anything. So, I don't know. Maybe you might have to shoot off and do some driver interviews, maybe.
Absolutely.
While I enjoy the booth. Go for it.
I can do. Right, let's hop ourselves over for the podium interview. But I suppose, Zach, this is goodbye for now.
Yes, it certainly is. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully I'll be back when Darragh Thacker doesn't turn up again.
Yes, certainly so. It's been an absolute pleasure. But look after yourself, and thank you once again for joining us at PRL. It's been a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Right, well, we talk about good results. AlphaTauri, double podium. Komi-san, how do you feel about that one?
I mean, considering everything that happened in that race, I think I started that last stint in dead last, and I've somehow scrounged my way to third. I could not be happier. I think that's a great result for me. So.
Absolutely. You'll take exactly what it can give. I mean, there was so much going on in that race. I would go for being very much the seam of it. So many overtakes, so many different strategies going on. How was you somewhat able to keep that pace up, Go? Because that was absolutely incredible to see.
I mean, from the podium interview last week, this is my favourite track.
Yeah, but even
it.
still, on those soft tyres, you just had a level of pace which the other drivers, your rapid counterpart in the Alfa Romeo Rapid OG, just didn't seem to be able to extract that pace on that soft compound of tyre for as long as you did. How did you manage those tyres, man? It was fantastic.
I think, to be honest, it was more to do with dirty air than anything. Like, OG's got very similar to pace to me, and he got stuck behind a lot more cars. Once I got past the first few, I had clear air, so I could really push and go for it. I think he burnt his tyres out in the traffic.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, there was a lot of carnage there, a lot of somewhat strategy changes at the last minute. We'll start with Kobe. When that final VSC came out and you hit the limit of 4, was there a part of you which somewhat regretted being on the tyre you were on, or was you very comfortable to somewhat just carry it on until the end? What was really that deciding point?
I think when the VSC came out, I was 5th, somewhere in that ballpark, and I knew if I pit again, I'd be down in something like 10th. And I didn't want to go past all them. And Jeddah's such a tight track, and it is prone to absolute carnage, so I just didn't want to get caught up in anything. That's the main thing, and I knew they would last till the end, just about.
And Gopher, what about yourself? Going onto that medium tyre, knowing you was going to have to make another stop, it's a very ballsy call to make.
It was partly thinking there's going to be another safety car. I didn't expect it to be that soon after the first one, or the second one, sorry.
Yeah.
When I pit, but then it was thinking, okay, we've had 3. There might be a 4th. I don't want to touch the hards. They're slow. They're not good around there. I mean, you could see the pace difference between the soft and the hard once it came out on the softs. So yeah, it was very much just I wanted the fastest tyre, even if I had to overtake 10 people.
I mean, certainly to put on a very entertaining show. But once again, both of you, congratulations. We will ask both of you about the next round around Qatar. Again, we'll start with Komi-san. How do you feel around Qatar? That sums it up. That sums it up. That sums it up. That's everyone's thought process around Qatar. It's a difficult circuit. It's not personally my favourite to somewhat race around and really try and challenge myself. But what do you reckon your realistic expectation will be there, Kobe?
Not crash. I reckon that'll be a good. If I finish the race, that'll be a win in my book. I've had a very, very on and off. I think I've had 4 DNFs and then 4 high finishes. So, not crashing. That's the main goal. That's all I can put in my head right now.
Okay, so you're going for the win. Lovely to hear. Rapid Gopher, what about yourself around Qatar? Is that a circuit you're confident with?
I'll take a podium. I'm not going to say the win. It's a good track. It just depends what what people are running wings wise, because you've got to run high wings around there, and then you'll get the odd person that's just an absolute rocket down the straight. But no, I like the track. I need to nail down sector 3 on it. It's tough.
I mean, it is very challenging. You said podium. Is there a chance you'll be aiming for a certain step of that podium?
2 or 3. I can't see me getting the win round it, but if I do, brilliant. I'll take it.
Very interesting. Both of you have called that you're going to win the race by 20 seconds, respectively. Very bold, very confident of both of you. I'm not sure I would necessarily be able to put my money on myself doing such a thing. But again, it's been a fantastic race here around Saudi Arabia. It's been an absolute pleasure getting the opportunity to talk to you here once again. Hopefully we'll see you both here next week after both of you miraculously win the same race. But without further ado, I feel like that's it from round 7.
Let's go.
Yeah, you can say goodbye, guys, if you want.
Thank you.
Yes,
Goodbye, guys.
It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely, you put on a very entertaining show, both of you. So we'll catch everyone for round 8, of course, around Qatar. It's going to be very interesting, very hectic. But until then, it's goodbye from me, goodbye from Zach, goodbye from Comey, and goodbye from Gopher.